VOA Learning English. This is the Agriculture Report. The slow food movement is growing in most of the Western world. The movement supports small local farms. It works against huge farms led by international food and agriculture companies. But the slow food movement is not growing very quickly in Africa. So a group called Slow Food International has named a Ugandan man to help it grow. Eddie Mukibi will work to help people in Africa grow healthy food. Slow Food International plans to create 10,000 gardens throughout Africa. Many of the gardens will be in schools. Mr. Mukibi says he hopes they will teach young people about the importance of slow food. There is still knowledge about traditional crops and planting seasons in Africa. He hopes the garden project will reconnect young people to the land. Mr. Mukibi was a student of the crop planting science called agronomy. He discovered that crops being planted in Uganda were sometimes not right for the farming environment. He says he began to understand the importance local foods had to food security, but local foods were quickly disappearing. These traditional products, he says, are used to African conditions, including poor weather. Mr. Mukibi is trying to persuade political leaders and scientists to support the slow food movement. But he says it is hard. They support big industrial farms that can produce a lot of a single crop. But Mr. Mukibi argues that the problem in Africa is not a lack of food. It is that the food is not reaching enough people. He says people should be working to improve ways of sharing food resources. For VOA Learning English, I'm Alex Varela. This is the VOA Special English Economics Report. China and Taiwan may disagree on political issues, but on Thursday they reached an agreement to protect investors. The agreement is important because China and Taiwan do not have diplomatic relations. China claims Taiwan as its territory, but Taiwan has been self-governing since 1949. The sides agreed to open new areas to investment and to inform the other within 24 hours. If an investor is arrested, talks on the deal have lasted 2 years, but they have been slowed because of the different legal systems in the two areas. The Chinese and Taiwanese negotiators signed the agreement in Taipei. They set up a way to negotiate an arbitration mechanism. The deal also will open new areas of business and industry to investment. Chinese interests had held back investment because of fears of a change in Taiwan's government. Market experts expect Chinese investors to buy shares of Taiwanese companies listed on Taiwan's stock exchange. Experts think high technology and travel industries will receive a lot of investment over the short term. Taiwanese share prices are considered undervalued, although companies are doing well. Jack Huang is a lawyer in Taipei. He says China will buy stocks and seek partnerships with Taiwanese companies, especially in technology. Jack Huang says a lot of investment will come from Chinese companies or the Chinese government wealth fund. He says Taiwan's companies are mainly financially sound, but stock prices are not too high. Taiwan's stocks, he says, are undervalued. Taiwan's economy is over $430 billion. Taiwan permits Chinese investors to buy directly into Taiwanese companies in 247 industries. They can also buy up to a 10% share in most companies. Experts in Taiwan say China wants to invest in the island to support efforts at political reunification. The Nationalist Party, or KMT, of the former leader of China, Chiang Kai-shek, went to Taiwan at the end of the country's civil war in the 1940s. Today, Taiwan has several political parties. The main opposition party held power for 8 years, starting in 2000. President Ma Ying-jeou of the KMT has sought closer economic ties with the mainland. In 2010, China invested $1 billion in Taiwan after a deal that year reduced export taxes for both sides. Transcripts, MP3s, and PDFs of our reports are online at voaspecialenglish.com. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Varela. From VOA Learning English, this is the Agriculture Report. China has rejected more than 1 million metric tons of United States corn since last November. The Chinese government says it is not accepting shipments that include Agrosur Viptera made by the seed company Syngenta. China says it has not approved importing this genetically modified or GMO kind of corn seed. A GMO food has had genes from other plants or animals added to its natural genetic content. America's National Grain and Feed Association says the Chinese decision is responsible for almost $3 billion in losses to the U.S. agricultural companies. Wendell Sherman is a farmer in the central state of Illinois. He also is a past leader of the U.S. Grains Council. He has traveled to China to represent American farmers. Mr. Sherman says demand for American corn used to feed animals is up throughout the world, except in China. He says that country has a very large market for it, but American sales there have dropped to almost nothing. He says GMOs increase the size and quality of harvests at lower cost to farmers. And he says some help the environment because they limit the kinds of pest control needed. Greg Turner is a contributing editor for the online publication GrainAnalyst.com. He says corn prices dropped when news first spread of the Chinese rejection. He says corn was trading at about $4.20 a bushel at that time. Chinese restrictions have continued, but corn prices have since gone up again. Still, Wendell Sherman says the situation caused mistrust of GMO farmers and grain analysts and grain companies that accept GMO crops. For VOA Learning English, I'm Alex Varela.